Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something powerful. When a woman finally detaches, a man starts to lose his mind. See, men are funny creatures. They don't always understand what they have until it's gone quiet, until that energy, that love, that presence they used to feel every day suddenly disappears. When a woman emotionally detaches, something deep shifts in the atmosphere of a relationship. A man might not realize it at first. He may even think things are the same, but slowly he begins to feel an absence, a kind of emptiness he can't quite explain. That emptiness is the loss of her emotional energy, the warmth, the care, the consistency, and the emotional nourishment she used to give without hesitation. See, when a woman loves, she gives in ways most men don't fully understand. She listens deeply, supports quietly, and shows up even when she's tired or hurt. She remembers the small details. She brings peace where there is chaos. Her energy becomes the heartbeat of the connection, and often a man grows so accustomed to it that he starts taking it for granted. He doesn't notice how much of his own emotional stability depends on her presence until she begins to pull away. Detachment doesn't happen overnight. It's not a switch that flips suddenly. It's a gradual process of disappointment, silence, and exhaustion. It starts when she realizes that her words don't change anything anymore, that her tears don't move him, that her efforts don't create the closeness they used to. Little by little, she stops investing. Her laughter fades, her questions lessen, her interest becomes minimal. And though she might still be there physically, emotionally she's already halfway out the door. That emotional absence creates a void that he begins to feel deep down. Even if he can't explain it, he might start to feel restless, irritable, or confused, not understanding that what he's missing isn't just attention, it's the emotional safety she provided through her presence. Men are often unaware of how much energy women pour into relationships. When she used to check on him, remind him of his worth, encourage his dreams, or simply listen to his frustrations, all of that was emotional labor. It created a sense of security and validation he grew comfortable with. But when that stops, when her texts slow down, her tone becomes distant, and her energy shifts, it unsettles him. It's like walking into a room where the light used to be warm and realizing it's suddenly gone cold. He doesn't just miss her actions, he misses the emotional atmosphere she created around him. Her detachment strips away the invisible comfort he relied on without gratitude. And that's when realization hits. He starts noticing the silence between their conversations, the absence of her laughter, the stillness in her eyes. He might even feel a strange kind of panic because he can sense that something valuable is slipping away, something he didn't appreciate when it was abundant. That's the power of a woman's emotional detachment. It reveals the depth of what she once gave and exposes how much of the relationship was held together by her emotional strength. When that strength withdraws, he finally feels the loss of what he took for granted. Not because she stopped loving suddenly, but because she finally chose herself over being unseen. When a woman detaches, something powerful begins to happen. The balance of power shifts. The very same man who once seemed distant, distracted, or even dismissive suddenly starts paying attention. Why? Because emotional detachment removes the control he unknowingly had. When a woman gives endlessly, she gives a man comfort, validation, and the assurance that no matter what happens, she will always be there. But when she finally pulls back and stops feeding his ego with her constant attention, that comfort disappears. Detachment is not about manipulation. It's a natural reaction to emotional exhaustion. It's a moment when a woman reclaims her power by refusing to beg for what should have been freely given in the first place. When a man feels that emotional shift, his mind begins to change. He starts wondering what happened to the woman who used to be so available, the one who used to respond instantly, care deeply, and forgive easily. Her silence becomes louder than her words ever were. Every missed message, every unanswered call, every calm, "I'm fine," becomes a mirror reflecting his behavior back at him. For the first time, he experiences what she felt: uncertainty, distance, and longing. And in that uncomfortable space, he begins to recognize her true value. The same love he once took lightly suddenly becomes something he misses, something he wants again, but can't easily reach anymore. You see, detachment isn't just emotional distance. It's a declaration of self-worth. It's the quiet way a woman says, "I deserve better." It's a shift from chasing validation to protecting her peace. That shift changes everything because energy never lies. When a woman is deeply attached, her energy flows toward the man. She gives, she tries, she nurtures. But when she detaches, all that energy flows back to her. It's like she lights up again. She starts smiling differently, walking confidently, focusing on herself. That glow, that peace, that confidence, it's magnetic. And suddenly, the same man who once overlooked her is drawn to her all over again, only now she's no longer chasing him. A man feels this shift as loss and curiosity mixed together. He wonders why she isn't reacting like before. He starts checking her social media, asking mutual friends how she's doing, or trying to start small conversations to gauge her interest. It's not that he's changed overnight, it's that the power dynamic has changed. The person who once needed reassurance has become self-assured, and the one who once felt in control now feels uncertain. Detachment flips the emotional script. It forces a man to see what he had, what he lost, and what he might never get back. This realization often arrives too late for many men. But for the woman, it's liberating. Because the moment she detaches, she stops seeking his approval and starts owning her worth. And in doing so, she reclaims the power she unknowingly gave away, the power of her peace, her attention, and her love. A man often doesn't understand the depth of love he receives until it stops feeding his ego. When a woman loves deeply, her affection builds him up. Her admiration, her encouragement, her constant emotional presence, all of that becomes a source of confidence for him. It's not that he's always aware of it, but he begins to rely on it. Her love becomes his comfort zone, a steady supply of validation he subconsciously counts on. He starts believing that her love is permanent, that no matter what he says or does, she'll always be there, waiting, forgiving, and understanding. But when that love stops coming his way, when she no longer compliments him, checks on him, or worries about his moods, he suddenly starts to feel the void. It's not just the absence of her words, it's the absence of the mirror that once reflected his best self back to him. Men often confuse love with ego fulfillment. They mistake the care, patience, and emotional labor of a woman for something they deserve automatically. As long as her love feeds his pride, he feels strong and secure. But love isn't meant to be one-sided. And when she stops giving because she's drained, he begins to see the difference between love and ego boost. At first, he might think she's just moody or distant, but soon he realizes it's deeper. She's detached. And that detachment exposes something he's not used to confronting, that his ego was thriving while her heart was breaking. When love no longer feeds a man's ego, he's forced to face himself. He starts questioning his actions, his words, and the way he treated her. He starts realizing that the love she gave him wasn't ordinary. It wasn't just attention. It was devotion. It was emotional support, belief in his potential, and patience during his flaws. He begins to remember moments he took for granted, the late night talks, the reassuring texts, the quiet gestures that made him feel seen. Now, without those things, he feels lost. His confidence wavers because the energy that used to uplift him is gone. That's when he begins to understand that love was never about his ego. It was about her heart. This realization often arrives when it's too late. By the time he sees the difference, she's already at peace with letting go. And that peace is what hurts him the most, because for the first time, he sees her power. She no longer needs to love him to feel whole. Her silence becomes her statement. Her distance becomes her strength. He begins to miss her, not just because she was there, but because of how she made him feel about himself. Yet, he knows deep down that her love was never meant to feed his ego. It was meant to grow alongside his. But he didn't nurture it, and now he's left realizing that the love he lost was the only thing that ever truly saw him for who he was and who he could have been. Silence and distance can speak louder than any argument or explanation ever could. When a woman goes quiet and begins to distance herself, a man starts to feel something unfamiliar: fear. Not the fear of confrontation or rejection, but the deeper, quieter fear of losing something real. A man may not understand emotions the way a woman does, but he understands presence. He knows what it feels like to be seen, cared for, and emotionally grounded by a woman's energy. So when that presence starts to fade, he senses it immediately. The silence becomes heavy, and every bit of distance she creates begins to echo in his mind. It's in that quiet space that he starts to realize how much her presence meant to him and how much of his emotional balance was tied to the love she gave effortlessly. When a woman withdraws, it's not always to punish or play games. Often, it's because she has finally reached her emotional limit. She's tired of explaining, tired of being misunderstood, tired of showing effort that isn't returned. So she stops. She stops arguing, stops texting first, stops trying to prove her worth. Her silence isn't empty, it's full of meaning, and that silence begins to work on him in ways words never could. The same man who used to ignore her messages now finds himself checking his phone more often. The same man who brushed off her emotions suddenly starts remembering the small things she used to do. Her silence unsettles him because for the first time, he realizes she may actually be done. And that thought shakes him. Distance adds to this realization. When she pulls back even slightly, he feels it like a shadow passing through his world. The warmth of her attention, once taken for granted, is gone. The calls that used to comfort him stop coming. The good morning texts that once made his day now stay unread because they no longer exist. That space she creates, whether physical or emotional, becomes the stage where his fear begins to grow. He starts to question himself. Is she moving on? Does she still care? Did I lose her for good? That uncertainty becomes his new reality, and it starts to eat at him from within. He begins to feel what she once felt, the anxiety, the wondering, the waiting. Silence and distance are powerful teachers. They don't yell, they don't demand, they don't chase. They simply reveal. They reveal what's real and what's temporary, what's strong and what was fragile all along. And for a man, that revelation can be both painful and transformative because in the stillness of her absence, he finally sees her value. He realizes that her love wasn't ordinary, that her consistency wasn't guaranteed. It dawns on him that losing her isn't just losing a person, it's losing peace, stability, and a sense of home. That's when fear turns into regret, and that regret, born from her silence, is what awakens him to the truth he ignored for too long. Detachment isn't about revenge or trying to make someone feel the pain they caused. It's about choosing peace over chaos, dignity over desperation, and self-worth over emotional exhaustion. When a woman detaches, people often misunderstand her calmness as coldness. But it's not that she stopped caring, it's that she finally started caring for herself. There comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that holding on is hurting more than letting go. That moment, quiet and powerful, is when detachment begins. It's when she decides that her time, energy, and emotions are too valuable to keep spending on someone who doesn't appreciate them. Detachment, then, is not about giving up. It's about growing up emotionally and reclaiming the strength she once gave away too freely. When a woman detaches, she no longer argues to be heard. She no longer chases to be chosen. She doesn't explain, beg, or prove her worth to anyone who can't see it. Her silence becomes her boundary. Her distance becomes her shield. And though from the outside it may look like indifference, it's actually one of the purest acts of self-respect, because when she was attached, she tolerated things she shouldn't have, broken promises, inconsistency, and emotional neglect, all in the name of love. But detachment teaches her that love without respect is not love at all. So she walks away not with anger, but with grace. She no longer wishes him harm or revenge. She simply wishes herself peace. This kind of peace comes from knowing that she doesn't need closure from someone who couldn't even offer clarity. It comes from understanding that her worth isn't defined by how much she's loved by someone else, but by how much she values herself. Detachment is the point where her healing begins. It's when she starts to see her reflection again, not through his eyes, but through her own. She starts investing in her happiness, rediscovering her passions, and finding comfort in her solitude. And in doing so, she reclaims the power she once lost in trying to keep a connection alive that was draining her spirit. For the man, her detachment often feels like punishment, but it isn't. It's simply the natural consequence of neglect. When someone repeatedly ignores love, eventually that love learns to protect itself. And that's what detachment truly is, protection, not retaliation. It's the woman saying, I can no longer pour from an empty cup. It's her choosing to honor her emotions by no longer giving them to someone who doesn't value them. This decision changes everything. It shifts the energy, restores her confidence, and reawakens her strength. Because detachment at its core isn't about hurting anyone. It's about healing herself. It's about recognizing that peace is far more powerful than revenge, and that walking away with dignity will always say more than any words of anger ever could. When you stop chasing a man, something shifts deep within the dynamic. The energy that once flowed toward him, your effort, your patience, your care, now returns to you, and that change does not go unnoticed. A man who was once certain of your attention begins to feel uneasy. He starts to question himself, his actions, and the way he treated you. The very certainty he once had about your love starts to fade, and that uncertainty sparks something powerful: reflection. See, as long as you are chasing him, he has no reason to stop and think. Your pursuit gives him comfort, control, and reassurance. But when you stop chasing, that comfort disappears, leaving him face to face with the consequences of his choices. A woman's decision to stop chasing isn't made overnight. It's born out of repeated disappointment, too many ignored messages, too many one-sided efforts. Too many times she tried to make him see her value, but once she decides to stop, she doesn't announce it. She simply withdraws her energy. She no longer tries to fix what he breaks, no longer excuses his distance, no longer fills in the silence he creates. Her focus shifts inward, and that quiet shift creates noise in his mind. Suddenly, he starts wondering where her attention went, why she's not reacting, why she's not fighting anymore. It's in this stillness that his awareness begins to grow. Men often learn through contrast. When her energy was chasing him, he felt secure. When it's gone, he feels the void. That void makes him think. He replays moments in his head. The times she was patient, the times she reached out, the times she tried to connect. He starts realizing how much she gave and how little he gave in return. He starts seeing her actions differently, not as routine gestures, but as signs of genuine love that he failed to appreciate. This realization can be uncomfortable, even painful, but it's necessary, because that discomfort is what leads to transformation. It forces him to reflect, to grow, and sometimes to change. The beauty of stopping the chase is that it restores balance. It teaches both people something important, that love can't be sustained through one-sided effort. For him, it's a wake-up call. For her, it's liberation. She learns that the right man doesn't need to be chased. He meets her halfway. He reciprocates energy instead of consuming it. And as she stands still in her peace, he is left with two choices: step up or lose her completely. Many men, when faced with this silence, choose to transform because they realize they are about to lose something real. Others don't. And that's okay too, because she's already won. The moment she stopped chasing, she broke the cycle of emotional imbalance. She stopped fighting to be chosen and started choosing herself. And that single act of letting go becomes the catalyst for his realization, his restlessness, and sometimes his redemption.